Deep in the heart of Alkebulan's divine realm lay the headquarters of the Jabari, a sacred order of scouts tasked with guarding the balance between the mortal and divine. This was a place of power and vigilance, where the watchers of the gods gathered to monitor disturbances across realms. Carved from obsidian and gold, the headquarters glowed faintly in the eternal twilight, its walls inscribed with tales of victories and warnings from the past. The Jabari had been created by the Divine Council of Alkebulan to serve as the first line of defense against any threat to the realms, and their loyalty to this duty was unparalleled. On this day, the air within the hall buzzed with tension. Captain Nkosana, a tall, broad-shouldered figure whose crimson cloak billowed as he moved, stood at the center of the hall. His piercing eyes scanned the room, their sharpness enough to quiet the low murmur of scouts gathered around him. He raised his voice, and the hall fell silent. "Jabari, listen closely. News has come from the southern territories. 2 regional spirits have fallen. Their domains lie in ruin, their power silenced." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the ranks of the scouts. Whispers of disbelief and unease echoed across the room. A scout stepped forward, his voice laced with worry. "Fallen? But how? The spirits are bound to their domains. For 2 to fall is unheard of." Captain Nkosana's jaw tightened as he responded. "That is why we must investigate. A squad has already been dispatched to assess the situation, but I fear there is more at play here than simple misfortune." Another scout, a wiry young man, raised his voice. "And what of the rumors, Captain? The whispers of creatures, unnatural ones?" The tension in the room thickened as all eyes turned to Nkosana. The captain's jaw tightened further, and his voice dropped, firm yet measured. "Rumors, yes, but we do not act on whispers. We act on evidence. I have selected a team to uncover the truth. To those chosen, prepare yourselves." The scouts stood at attention, a mix of nervous anticipation and determination etched into their faces. Nkosana stepped forward, motioning to a group of scouts standing in formation. Among them was Tala, a sharp-eyed veteran whose scarred face bore the marks of many battles, and Ikon, a younger scout, whose instincts and curiosity often made him stand out. "Tala, you will lead the team. Ikon, you will be her second. Your mission is to travel to the southern territories, investigate the fallen spirits, and report back. Move swiftly and cautiously. If there is a threat, do not engage. Your task is to observe and inform." Tala stepped forward, her movements sharp and precise. She saluted with her fist to her chest, her voice steady as she responded, "It will be done, Captain." Ikon followed, his expression serious, though his stance lacked Tala's rigid formality. "We'll find the truth," he said simply. The hall buzzed with a mix of urgency and dread as the scouts began their preparations. The Jabari were no strangers to danger, but the reports from the southern territories carried an ominous weight. For centuries, the balance of Alkebulan had endured, protected by the vigilance of the gods and their scouts. Yet now, cracks had begun to appear, and the Jabari were about to witness a threat unlike any they had faced before. With their hearts steeled and their minds focused, Tala and her team set off, unaware that the shadows ahead would reveal horrors that could shake even the gods themselves. The journey to the southern territories was long, the air growing heavier with each passing mile. Tala led the team with practiced precision, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon for signs of danger. The land around them seemed eerily quiet, too quiet. The once vibrant forests were now darkened, the trees twisted as if recoiling from some unseen force. The silence was broken only by the occasional crackle of distant thunder, though no storm clouds loomed above. Ikon, walking a few steps behind Tala, couldn't suppress his unease. "This doesn't feel right," he muttered, his voice barely audible. Tala, without turning, replied, It's not supposed to. Keep your guard up." As they approached the region tied to the fallen spirits, the scene grew more unsettling. The once lush terrain was now desolate, ash and soot blanketing the ground. The air reeked of burnt wood and something far more sinister, an acrid metallic scent that made the scouts instinctively reach for their weapons. Then, in the distance, they saw it, a figure locked in battle. The god of the southern mountain, a towering being wreathed in green light, was fighting for his life. His weapon, a massive stone hammer, swung with earth-shaking force, striking at three monstrous forms that surrounded him. But the creatures were relentless. Their smoke-like bodies twisted and coiled, making them impossible to strike directly. Their glowing red eyes and bull-like horns gleamed menacingly, and their scorpion tails lashed out with terrifying precision. The Jabari froze, hidden in the shadows as they watched the battle unfold. Tala raised her hand, signaling for silence. Ekon, wide-eyed, whispered, "What are those things?" Tala shook her head, her voice barely audible. "Something we're not ready to face." The god roared, his voice echoing like a landslide. But it was clear he was losing. The creatures moved with an unnatural coordination, their smoky forms encircling him like a trap. One struck his leg, and he stumbled. Another lashed at his back, and the third delivered a devastating blow to his chest. The god fell to his knees, his green light flickering weakly. Then the cube appeared. It floated between the monsters, a dark, pulsating object that seemed to suck the very light from the air around it. Its surface was smooth, yet rippling, as if alive. The Jabari watched in horror as the cube moved toward the fallen god. The monsters pressed their claws into his chest, holding him in place as the cube began to glow. The cube was no ordinary weapon. It was a fragment of the Orb of Anti-Creation, the dark twin of the Orb of Creation. The Orb of Creation, forged by the creator gods themselves, was a tool of infinite power, used to bring life and balance to the universe. It also served as a vessel to contain the excess power of the creator gods, for their might was too great to be wielded unchecked. But the Orb of Anti-Creation was its opposite, a weapon of destruction, forged in secrecy and stolen from the creator gods. When the three fragments of the Orb of Anti-Creation are united, they unleash a darkness capable of unmaking even the divine. The Jabari watched in stunned silence as the cube's dark energy flowed into the god. His green light dimmed, fading into a sickly grey. The creatures didn't kill him. They didn't need to. His power was gone, drained into the cube, leaving him a husk of his former self. Akon clenched his fists, his voice trembling. "We can't just stand here." Tala grabbed his arm, her eyes fierce. "We have our orders. This isn't a fight we can win." The monsters, their task complete, sank into the ground, their smoky forms vanishing as if they had never existed. The cube disappeared with them, leaving behind only the lifeless grey husk of the once mighty god. The Jabari team remained hidden for several minutes, the weight of what they had witnessed sinking in. Finally, Tala motioned for them to move. "We need to report this, now." The journey back to the headquarters was silent, the scouts too shaken to speak. When they arrived, Tala wasted no time delivering her report to Captain Nkosana. Her voice was steady, but the urgency in her tone was unmistakable. She described the creatures, the cube, and the fall of the god in meticulous detail. Nkosana listened intently, his expression darkening with every word. When she finished, he stood and addressed the hall. "This cannot wait. Assemble the High Jabari. We must take this to the Divine Council of Alkebulan." The room buzzed with activity as orders were given and preparations made. The Jabari had witnessed the impossible, a power capable of stealing divinity itself. And though they did not know it, their report would set into motion events that would forever alter the balance of the realms. The High Jabari moved with precision and urgency. their crimson cloaks flowing as they ascended the golden staircase to the upper sanctum of the headquarters. Captain Nkosana led the way, his expression grim. Tala and Ikon followed close behind, their presence a testament to the gravity of their report. The sanctum, a circular chamber illuminated by ethereal light, held an air of both reverence and dread. Here, decisions were made that shaped the fate of realms. Nkosana stood at the center, his voice echoing across the room. Jabari, we have witnessed something unprecedented. Creatures of smoke and shadow attacked a god of the southern mountain. They did not kill him, but stripped him of his power using a device, a cube unlike anything we've seen. This cube, as my scouts have reported, emanates a power too dark to be natural. The High Jabari exchanged uneasy glances, their murmurs filling the room like distant thunder. One elder stepped forward, his voice measured but heavy with concern. "A cube, you say? Describe it." Tala, her voice steady, answered. "It was dark and pulsating, oozing with power. Its very presence seemed to drain the light around it. It wasn't just a weapon, it felt alive," Ekon added, his voice less certain but no less earnest. "The creatures, they weren't ordinary either, smoke-like, with red eyes, bull horns and scorpion tails. They were created to do this, to steal." Another elder, a stoic figure with an air of authority, spoke up. "You're suggesting they were sent? By whom? And for what purpose?" Nkosana's jaw tightened. "That's what we must determine. But this power, this cube, it matches descriptions from the oldest records, the Orb of Anti-Creation." The room fell silent. The name hung in the air like a storm cloud, its weight pressing on everyone present. Finally, the elder broke the silence. "The Orb of Anti-Creation was destroyed eons ago." "Was it?" Nkosana countered. "Or was it merely broken, its pieces scattered?" The tension in the room thickened. Another elder, visibly skeptical, spoke up. "Even if this is true, what could have awakened it now? And how do we know these Jabari didn't misinterpret what they saw?" Tala's voice cut through the murmurs, sharp and resolute. "We know what we saw. The god's power was drained, not taken by force, but extracted. These creatures, whatever they are, aren't acting randomly. This was deliberate." The report sent ripples through the divine realm, reaching the ears of the Divine Council of Alkebulan. Within hours, the decision was made to convene the council. Messengers traversed the cosmic pathways, summoning gods from every corner of Alkebulan's celestial domains. The Divine Council chamber was a sight to behold, a vast cosmic expanse where stars flickered like candles in the void. The gods appeared one by one, their forms grand and imposing, each representing the essence of their dominion. Orunmila was among the first to arrive, his expression calm yet alert. The god of fate and divination carried himself with an air of quiet authority, his presence radiating wisdom. One by one, the elder gods entered. A massive figure wreathed in molten gold, his voice like the rumble of an erupting volcano, took his seat. Another, cloaked in shadows with eyes like glowing embers, nodded silently to Orunmila. Others arrived, representing the sun, the sea, the wind and the earth, each embodying the cultures and elements they governed. When all had gathered, the council's herald, a being of pure light, spoke. "The Divine Council of Alkebulan is in session. The Jabari of Alkebulan have brought forth troubling news. Let us hear it." Nkosana stepped forward, his form dwarfed by the presence of the gods. Yet his voice did not waver as he recounted the events his scouts had witnessed. He spoke of the creatures, the cube, and the fallen god, sparing no detail. As he described the Orb of Anti-Creation, the chamber grew silent. A god with eyes like sapphire flames leaned forward, his voice cutting through the silence. The Orb of Anti-Creation is a relic of legend. Its fragments were said to have been destroyed or hidden. If what you say is true, then this is no small threat. Another god, cloaked in the aura of a storm, scoffed. Relics and legends. The Jabari exaggerate. Gods have fallen before, and yet the balance remains. Why should we believe this time is any different? Orunmila's voice, calm but firm, rose above the murmurs. Because this is no ordinary fall. These creatures are not natural, nor is the power they wield. And if the Orb of Anti-Creation is truly involved, then the danger is far greater than we can comprehend. The storm god bristled. You speak as though you know the outcome already, Orunmila. I speak as one who has seen the signs, Orunmila replied. His gaze swept across the room, his tone growing sharper. And the signs are clear. If we do not act, we risk the unthinkable. Another god, draped in silver and starlight, spoke. Then act we must. But who will go? This is not a task for the council. Before any could respond, Ogun and Ikenga stepped forward. Their powerful forms radiated strength and resolve. We will go, Ogun said, his voice steady and commanding. If these creatures threaten the balance, it is our duty to stop them. Ikenga nodded in agreement. Let us investigate. We will uncover the truth and bring it to the council. The storm god, still unconvinced, waved a dismissive hand. Then go, but do not expect legends to save you. As the meeting concluded, Orunmila lingered, his thoughts heavy. The council had reached a decision, but fear and arrogance still clouded their judgment. He turned to the stars, murmuring softly, Unity is our only hope, if only they could see it. And so the Divine Council of Alkebulan made its choice, sending Ogun and Ikenga to face an unknown threat. But even as decisions were made, shadows lingered. In the far corners of the cosmos, the forgotten child stirred, his destiny drawing ever closer. The council chamber was steeped in tension as Nkosana completed his report. The gods murmured amongst themselves, their voices rising and falling like waves crashing against the shores of uncertainty. Orunmila remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the celestial floor beneath him. Finally he spoke, his voice cutting through the discord. There is more at play here than the fall of a god or the resurfacing of an ancient relic. Orunmila began, his tone calm but laced with gravity. The signs point to a convergence of fates, and one such thread has drawn our attention for some time now. The storm god scoffed, his form crackling with static. Another prophecy from the god of fate. Spare us your riddles, Orunmila. What thread are you speaking of? Orunmila turned to face him directly, his expression unwavering. Amadioha. The name carried weight, and its utterance silenced the murmurs instantly. Even the storm god paused, his glowing eyes narrowing. Amadioha is in Oyo, Orunmila continued, a god whose power is both unpredictable and unmatched, and whose presence in the same city as Shango raises a very real risk. A god cloaked in molten gold leaned forward, his voice rumbling like an earthquake. Are you suggesting these two gods, both reckless and uncontrollable, could join forces? Do you have any idea what that could mean for the balance of the realms? Amadioha, the god of thunder and storms, and Shango, the Orisha of fire and justice. Two beings of unmatched power, their paths converging in the mortal city of Oyo. The thought of their union was enough to strike fear into the hearts of even the elder gods. Orunmila raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. I suggest nothing. I state fact. Their meeting is inevitable. Whether they clash or unite, it will ripple across realms. But I trust Amadioha. His journey is one I have seen, and he will play a pivotal role in what is to come. The storm god sneered. You trust him? A god who has already been exiled once for his reckless destruction? Before Orunmila could respond, another voice rang out, its tone sharp and cutting. And what of the forgotten child? The chamber erupted into chaos. Gods who had been silent now spoke all at once, their voices a cacophony of blame, fear, and disbelief. Orunmila, unfazed, stepped forward. "Yes, the forgotten child," he said, his voice rising above the clamor. "A child born of a human mother and a godfather, abandoned by our kind because of arrogance and fear. You all remember the choice to erase him from existence, but the child lives, hidden and unknown, and his fate intertwines with what we face now." A god draped in shadows hissed, "This is madness. The child was supposed to be erased. How can he possibly matter now?" "Because fate is not so easily denied," Orunmila replied sharply. "The same arrogance that led us to abandon him may now come back to destroy us." Another god, his eyes glowing like twin suns, growled, "The only being capable of such power theft is one we defeated eons ago. Are you suggesting he has returned?" Orunmila's expression darkened, his gaze sweeping the room. "I suggest nothing. But if the Forbidden One sealed long ago stirs once more, then we must prepare for a war unlike any we have known. Do not let arrogance blind you to the signs." The storm god slammed his hand against the celestial table, thunder rumbling through the chamber. "This is absurd. The Forbidden One was sealed with power so great he cannot rise again." The molten gold god's voice rumbled in agreement. "And even if he could, the Orb of Anti-Creation would have to be whole. That is impossible." Orunmila fixed them with a piercing gaze. "Is it impossible, or is it what you tell yourselves to sleep at night?" The room fell into an uneasy silence, the weight of Orunmila's words settling over them. Finally, the herald spoke, his voice like a beam of light cutting through the dark. "Enough! The Divine Council has heard all that must be said. Ogun and Ikenga will investigate the mortal realm. Let us hope their findings will clarify the nature of this threat." As the gods began to leave, whispers filled the chamber. The forgotten child, the Orb of Anti-Creation, the meeting of Amadioha and Shango. The threads of fate were tightening, and the gods, despite their arrogance, could feel the noose. Orunmila lingered, his gaze turning to the stars that flickered faintly above the cosmic expanse. "Unity," he murmured to himself. "Unity is our only hope." And so the Divine Council of Alkebulan set their course, but fear and pride still lingered in their hearts. Meanwhile, in the mortal realm, the meeting of gods was drawing closer, a convergence of power and fate that would spark a fire no realm could contain.